All right, well, hey, my name's Matt Nupin. I'm one of the teacher co-founders of Docent Edu. And Ben?
Yeah, and I'm the what are we calling it? Developer? No, technical co-founder. I do the software development and other aspects with Docent Edu.
Awesome. So thank you guys so much. Let me jump in real quick and just let them know what they need to do. Thank you guys so much for joining us at Tech Team Online during our flipped and blended learning course. Ben and Matt are with us today from Docent Edu. Really excited to have them share because I love this product. So, or this tool, I guess you would call it. And remember, just as you're going through, if you have questions, use that EdTech Team Online hashtag. Also try to tag Docent Edu so they can answer your questions as well. So sorry guys, take it away.
All right. Well, yeah, so we got started from basically a problem that I was having in my classroom with my students, teaching high school science. And then another co-founder, Karen Hogan, is a middle school English teacher. And it was the problem of working with online text can be really tough. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and start off by going to websites. So I'm going to show like how this works here. So I'm going to share my screen. And make sure I'm on the right screen here. All right. So let's go to like npr.org. And so the idea is that when you have text that you're going to be assigning to your students, sometimes they can really get stuck. I worked with at-risk teens for a number of years, and seeing this giant list of text, whether it's an online textbook or a news article, can be really tough. And so our thinking was, hey, that would be really great if I could actually just modify that text that's right there. And so that's what Docent Edu does. What I did right now is I got this little toolbar that showed up. This is the Docent Edu extension. And I clicked on it up in the toolbar right there, and we've got it for Firefox and Chrome. And really, it's sort of like in your lessons, you want to start off by just kind of like giving them some instructions of like what you want them to do. So I'm going to do that is I'm going to click on the sticky note right there, and I'm going to select someplace up at the top, and I'm just going to give my students some instructions. So instructions: read through the text and answer all the questions, and then maybe I'm going to add in I want them to highlight key terms that we're going over in class. So I'm just going to have like read and highlight things you have questions about. And I've heard from one teacher that they really like of adding in something right here of telling them of a final question that they're going to think about at the end. So something to think about as they're reading through the text. So what's great is that instantly right here, people are now, they have their instructions right there. So classroom management gets pretty simple. And now we can add in some questions and embed that right within the text. So I'm going to click on this question button. And then the way the questions work is that I can now actually just add in a question where I want. And then I can change the points, and I can just click create. And it's that simple of now students can answer the questions right there on the page. So as they're reading through, this really kind of changes the entire flow of the lesson because they're able to interact with the text with those questions you've added in. And you can turn these into multiple choice questions. So let's say like option 1 or option 2. And so I'm just typing this in right now. And then I hit enter, return, and it turns into multiple choice. And then this is a good way of being able to give students some like instant feedback on what they're saying in there. And then you as a teacher, you can see that. And if you want to have more discussion, you can add in a class discussion here too. So students can share their thoughts and their ideas with other students. So you put in your discussion question and create that right there. And so as students are reading through, you're kind of guiding their thinking and getting them thinking about certain things by embedding these formative assessments in these discussions. And then students also have their own annotation tool. So this little highlighter right there, that pencil tool, this is where you can now highlight text that's in the text in there. So we can highlight things that we want to bring out to them. So and say like civil rights, and then like monitors, like maybe of like, I'm gonna go ahead and add a little note here. So I'm gonna click on that note, right, that text that I just highlighted. I'm going to click little plus. I'm going to click OK. And now students can actually see that note that I added in. So it kind of turns into this whole new layer that goes on top of the text. And within those sticky notes, you can add in additional things. So the last thing I'll show you here is adding in a sticky note with a video. So after they've kind of read through this a little bit, I'm going to go over to YouTube and maybe of like how monitors at the voting stations works. So voting, let's see what we come up here. All right, so this looks like this could be kind of an interesting one that we want to add in. So I'm going to just copy that URL right there, and heading back to my docent, I'm going to have the instructions of watch this video and answer question below. I'm going to paste in that link, and so now students can watch this video right there within the page. So it's great that they don't have to go to a separate website or a new tab or anything like that, which is going to cause them to lose focus, and going to run into some technical issues. Now I'm like from the video, explain, and there we go. So just simply by adding in a couple of questions and some highlights in a discussion, you're encouraging students now, you're kind of supporting them as they're reading through it, but you're really encouraging them to think a little bit deeper about the text as they're reading through there, and they're getting the instant feedback from multiple choice and seeing what their peers are thinking as well. Ben, do you want to kind of add some stuff onto there? Oh, stop sharing my screen.
Yeah, sure. So a couple points to touch on. Matt talked about how multiple choice gives instant feedback. Something that he didn't mention with that is the students will see if they're right or wrong immediately when they answer, and then if they get it wrong, they have multiple tries to get it right. So there's a instant feedback there, and then there's also a mastery element, so where they keep answering until they get it right. Were you thinking of showing the like student annotations?
Yeah, so I'm going to show that right now. I'm going to try and share my screen. I'm going to share a different screen. Here we go. All right, so I'm going to show off, these are some pre-made docents that I created before. So a docent is kind of what we call a lesson layer that goes on top of the page. Because one of the things that's really neat is that students are still going to the original page, which we feel is really important, because if it's a New York Times article or if it's on ESPN.com and you're connecting sports with what you're talking about in class, like having it on ESPN.com is going to really grab your students' attention much more than if it was in like an LMS or some sort of school system. So here's one that I created before that was on Tweet Tribune, where I've got my multiple choice. I've got all these other questions that are embedded in there. And I'm going to show you kind of like what that looks like now as students are responding to these questions and they're looking at these different things I've added in. What's nice is that it's also a real-time element for assessment. So right now I'm over in the Docent Edu dashboard, and I'm looking at my grade section. I'm going to go ahead and pull up some example responses for that one. And so this is for this docent right here, and I've got my questions embedded within there. And what I can do now is right here, I can see what the responses are. So for this first question of predict what the article is going to be about, I can see what the students' responses are. I see what time they responded to it. So if it's, if you're doing this over the, as a homework thing or as an online class, you can see when students are checking in for their assignments, but also in class. And these responses are going to start showing up in your dashboard in real time. So you can kind of start acting on what students are saying before the end of the class period. So you get that real-time responses. And this is one of the other ones. This is one of the multiple choice questions here. And this one I really like, because as a science teacher, I'm always about misconceptions that students have. And so one of the questions was, hey, it's 8.8 million tons of plastic. Like, if students don't know how big of a number that really is, it kind of loses the whole significance of it. So that's why I asked them, like, hey, how many elephants do you think it is? And it's great because Ariana here was thinking her understanding of 8.8 million tons was really low. So she selected 372 first, then 12,000. Then she got to the 600,000 elephants. Joe got it right away. Garland's responses are all over the place. So maybe I'm going to go check in with Garland, make sure he kind of understands like what we're working on. So it's fun. It's like you get this instant feedback from your students so you can actually interact with them more by having the lesson online. So that's that one. And like you were saying, Ben, for student annotations, like viewing the annotations, this is actually this is the first active reading assignment I did with my science class. Because it's something that I just hadn't really done. And Karen, our other co-founder, she's English teacher, so she was always like, Matt, like you need to be doing more lessons where students are highlighting and thinking about the text. And so this is my first one. It's on a published Google Doc. And I gave the instructions of highlight the animal's adaptation and the benefit. And then highlight one thing you have a question for each animal. So I've got my instructions right there. And as they're going through, like this one, I put a few questions at the end, but that's it. I didn't put other things in the middle. So as they're reading through, I can actually now see, I can select my students, and I can see what they're highlighting on here. So if I keep Adrian selected on here, I can actually see what Adrian is highlighting as he's working through the text, and I can just real quickly toggle through. And we've got iOS and Android apps also. And so times where I don't have a laptop, I'll actually just have my iPhone next to me, and I'll just toggle through the different students and kind of get an idea of what they're highlighting, because it's nice, because then I'm not hovering over Camille's shoulder to see what she's doing. I can just kind of see it. And if she's fine, then that's okay. I won't bug her at all. But if Camille's really struggling with it, then I'll go and I'll check in with her. So I think some of my students was highlighting like all kinds of stuff. Like they were all over the place. So then I'd go and check in with that student and be like, hey, like, let's talk a little bit more about what an adaptation is to make sure that they understand that. And to give you an idea of kind of things that are all around there of like current events and important things. So from Cecil Lyon a number of years ago, here's another one of being able to add in, so we can start off with a discussion question. Maybe students don't understand where things are, so if we're talking about current events, here's a Google map that we've embedded in here of like, here's where Zimbabwe is. And it's fun too, because it's a real interactive Google map, so they can zoom out and be like, oh, like that's where it is in Africa, if they weren't really aware of that. And you can add in some geography questions, different things as they're going along. So it gives you a lot of flexibility in the types of content that you can use with your students, but also of how you want them to actually interact with that text, whether it's a website or a Google Doc. Yesterday, I was just talking with somebody that was using a Google site that they had created. So a lot of different options on that. All right, before I almost forgot about this. So you're creating your docents, you are putting all these great things together, and now it's a question of, all right, well, how do you assign these things out? So if we went back to this New York Times or this NPR one that we just created, no, you guys are looking at a different one right now, right? Yeah, you can see this page. I think I was on the wrong one. All right, I'm gonna go to the Docent Edu dashboard. So I'm gonna open up a new tab and click the extension here. And the dashboard is where these docents that you've created all live, and then you create your classes and you do your grading, and you can assign some things out. So these are some of the example ones. So these are some of my docents that I have here. And you can sort them by like certain classes, so you can see all the ones that you've got. So for like my demo class here, here's all my demo ones. From here, I can now assign them out to my classes. Docent Edu works on kind of a class structure. So you create a class in here. If you use Google Classroom, we've got a lot of amazing classroom integration. Ben has added in a lot of stuff. So it's like roster syncing, importing your student roster to begin with, signing it out to them. And just last week, we released the ability to sync up grades as well with Google Classroom. So there's a lot of neat stuff. And so when you have your class, you have students enroll themselves in the class, or you import them from Google Classroom. And so what's nice about this is that you could have a class of 30 students, and you just put this up on your projector, and you can have your entire class signed up for Docent Edu and on their first docent within about 2 minutes after they've installed that extension. So your students have to have the extension installed, and then they're enrolled in the class. So let's say for this AP Chemistry one, now if I want to assign this Tween Tribune one about garbage to my AP Chemistry class, I'll click on the icon right there. I'm gonna select AP Chemistry, and then that's it. Every student that's in my AP Chemistry class is now gonna have access to this docent, and so I can now just simply copy and paste this link in Schoology or Moodle or Edmodo or whatever LMS I use, or if I'm using Google Classroom, I can even share it directly out to Google Classroom from here, so it makes it even easier. Since we're looking at the classes one, you can also invite other teachers to be co-teachers. That lets both of you edit and create docents for that class. You can also view your student roster here and add and remove students from here as well. So if I wanted to, so I have Ben, I'm going to remove you from my class. So I can go ahead and then remove Ben from my class, and then we're good. And you can delete classes from there as well. Looking at your docents, you can then assign them from here. But one of the things I'm going to show you too is this orange share button. What's really cool about this is this lets you now share your docent with other teachers. And we've got a big collection of them in a Google Doc that has a bunch of different docents that Karen and I have created, as well as some other teachers that they've shared with us. And this lets other people view that docent that you created without any student data being visible. So you can always click on this and then just tweet it out. And then lastly, yeah, so then looking back over at our grades, this is where you just simply select the class that you want to be looking at. You select the docent that you want, and then you end up seeing all those responses, and you can narrow it down more if you want to for a specific question, or if you want to look at the traditional one of I want to select a certain student. So I want to see what Adrian said for all of these. I can just select the student and then see what they put down for us. So Adrian missed quite a few here. And then you can go through and then you can type in a score, and then it'll calculate out the average score. And students also have their own dashboards, so they can see which docents have been assigned to them and their grades.
Awesome. This is really great for everybody to hear, just knowing that you can really hold students accountable for that reading that you're having them do, and you can add those videos in there too to support them with either background knowledge or a map. So great to let them know exactly where they are, because so many students approach reading and they're reading the text, and if they don't have that background information, they're not going to be able to understand it. So great tools for that. So thank you. A question for you guys is, when you guys are finding articles, do you have best places, your favorite places for finding articles?
Yes, that was one of the biggest questions we got right away. On our website, on DocentEDU.com, we have under resources a growing collection of tools that teachers have shared with us, some of them that we hadn't really discovered before. Up here. All right. You can see my screen now, right?
Yep.
Okay, all right. Yeah, so on our website, under resources, we have different tools that you can embed, but then also text sources. And again, almost any website that's out there worked with Docent Edu, but these are ones that work really well in kind of the middle school through high school level. And some of the other ones too, of like OpenStax is more of a college level textbook. But what's nice is that because you're kind of enhancing the text that's already there, it's definitely something that you could then make approachable for students that are at different levels in high school and not just college. So it's a really good place to kind of go through and explore and find different things that are on there.
Awesome, that's fantastic, great. The other thing, just thinking about too, do you see this as a tool best for middle to high school students, or do you see a place for it in the elementary classroom as well?
Yeah, we originally were sort of like, yeah, like middle school and high school, but we ended up hearing from some elementary school teachers pretty early on that they loved it because everything was in one spot. And so they would do things of, even if there wasn't a lot of text, for being able to embed videos and different things kind of all in that one spot, things that you couldn't do in a Google Doc, you can do with Docent Edu. So that was definitely being able to have everything that the students need in one spot and very focused for the students.
Awesome. And my one last thing too, I did see that in one of the lessons, you can embed other things besides a map or a YouTube video. In one of them, did I see that you had an ed puzzle?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
That's awesome layering of all these different flipped and blended learning tools. So. Yeah, Ed Puzzle, I use Clipit a lot for audio recordings. So I'll create like a voiceover that'll just embed right away at the beginning. But like Quizlet, you can even add in your Google presentations into them. So it's a lot of flexibility. Anything with an embed code, almost anything with an embed code, you can throw into those sticky notes. That's awesome. Very cool. So just thinking, as we're approaching, I would love your guys's knowledge behind flipped and blended learning and best practices, and why Docent is a great tool for that in the classroom.
Where do I start? A big thing of it is that with the flipped and blended lessons, it's about being asynchronous and that it's not the direct instruction from the teacher. And so you're sprinkling in those little things that you want students to be thinking about as they're going through the text. And that's kind of the big thing of that they're able to process through it at their own speed. And you're providing the level of support that your students are going to need, and the resources that they're going to need, and the questions that you want them thinking about as they're going through. So it makes them much more independent, but you're not babying them. You're making them think more critically about certain things in the text. And you can make them show these things by having them highlight and having them ask questions as they're reading the text. So you can really challenge them a lot more without making the lesson more difficult or time consuming just to complete. And so that, like, the fact that you can take everything that's good about the teacher and put that into your docent while being able to separate yourself from it and have your students be successful. And then you as a teacher, you can take all the responses and now, continue going from that. It kind of really frees you up of no longer being stuck to that paradigm of we've got our textbook, we've got our LMS, and we've got our class discussion and these separate things when they should all just be together.
Yeah, and I guess on the blended learning front, it's really easy since that's what you had to do before some of these tools came out. You had to have the teacher in front and kind of lecture and things, and it's can be tricky to just like let your kids do stuff, but you really do just need to like trust them and Docent helps you monitor some of that stuff because you can view like responses in the gradebook as they're answering, and you can walk around and see how students are doing, but kind of trusting them to do things on their own pace rather than holding them too much by the hand and having to be teacher centered.
I had a great time today in class. We did a docent on the viral video of the guy that was stopped by a police officer in Edina here in Minnesota. And so we were kind of discussing that of like people's perceptions and things like that. And it was great because sort of like it got to the end of class and like nobody realized it. And it was like, it's over already, because they'd really kind of gotten into it. But it's fun because I was looking at the responses and I was just kind of like going around like talking to them about like what they were doing, and they got into it more. It was fun.
That's awesome. That's a great example. So, well, I just really appreciate you guys taking the time to share, because I feel that this is such a great tool and I've used it before and really enjoy using it. So where would any last places, your best places? I know your website probably has some great resources if people want to learn more exactly step by step how they can set up some docents, or is it your YouTube channel the best place to go? Where would you direct them for the best resources?
So our YouTube channel has turned out to be a great resource. When you sign up for Docent Edu, we have a number of example docents that are there. So check those out. And our YouTube channel, we try to cover every possible thing. And if you ever get stuck, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again here because I totally forgot to well, at the bottom of the toolbar, there's a little star. If you click on that star, it's going to send us a direct message. So if you do get stuck on something, like just send us a message and we'll respond right then. I think about half the videos now on our YouTube channel are from teachers that ask us questions like, how do I do this? So we then made up a YouTube video then to kind of show them how to do that. So yeah, definitely our YouTube channel. And there's a free trial when you first sign up for Docent Edu, but you're only limited to 5 at one time. So create your 5. And then delete the ones that you don't want, and then go ahead and keep creating more, and really make sure that it's something that's going to work well for your students. I'm pretty sure it's going to, but really get in there and explore and experiment with how you can use it.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for joining us. And remember, those of you guys who are watching or watching the recording later, tweet out your learnings, share what you have come across as you go through and create your first docent. What do you think? Yeah. And then tweet out those questions as well. So Ben and Matt, thank you so much. Any last thoughts for us?
Well, I mean, as long as you're tweeting, go ahead and make a docent and share that docent by tweeting it out, by clicking on the orange button like Matt showed earlier.
Yes.
I agree. Absolutely. Great idea. Great idea. So thank you guys so much, and we'll see everybody online soon. Thanks.
Right. Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.